Welcome, everyone, to the Economic Sutra, a brand new show.
Ew.
It's going to take you on a journey through the fascinating world of ancient Indian economic thought.
Yeah, I like it.
Before we really get started, I do want to just acknowledge the incredible team behind this production. Audiocast Lab, India's
so amazing.
premier podcast production house, really passionate about creating engaging high-quality audio content.
Truly.
Been instrumental in bringing the show to life. So
absolutely.
If you're ever looking to start your own podcast or audio series, I highly recommend checking them out.
For sure, for sure.
All right, now let's dive into today's topic.
Let's do it.
Imagine this. Thousands of years ago, ancient Indian thinkers were already contemplating some of the same economic challenges that we grapple with today.
Yeah, it is fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
I think we often associate ancient Indian texts with spirituality and philosophy.
Absolutely.
Which is absolutely true. But what many people don't realize is that these texts also contain a wealth of practical wisdom about economics and governance.
So let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What are some of the key texts we're talking about here? And what kind of economic insights can we find in them?
Well, we have the Vedas, among the oldest scriptures in the world.
Wow.
They don't just contain hymns and rituals. They also mention things like merchants traveling in caravans, the use of gold as a form of currency, and the importance of agriculture for a thriving society.
Interesting.
It really challenges the notion that ancient Indians weren't engaged in economic activities.
So we're talking about insights that are over 3,500 years old.
That's right, over 3,500 years old.
What else?
Then we have the Dharmashastras, which are essentially rule books for how society should function.
Interesting.
They deal with things like taxes, property rights, contracts, and even ethical conduct in business. It's like they were already laying the groundwork for a fair and just economic system.
It sounds like they were thinking about a lot of the same issues that we're still dealing with today.
Yeah.
How to create a stable economy, how to ensure fairness in transactions, how to balance individual freedom with the needs of society.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the Arthashastra, which is probably the most well-known ancient Indian text on economics and statecraft.
I've heard of that one. It's like a guidebook for rulers, right?
Yes, but it's so much more than that. The Arthashastra is incredibly comprehensive. It covers everything from foreign policy and military strategy to taxation, trade, and even agriculture. It's a remarkable testament to the depth and sophistication of ancient Indian economic thought.
All right, let's break down some of these insights. What are some of the aha moments that really stand out to you from the Arthashastra?
Well, one thing that struck me is their understanding of public goods. The Arthashastra emphasizes the importance of things like roads, irrigation systems, and public safety for a strong and thriving economy.
Sound familiar?
It does, doesn't it?
Absolutely. We're still talking about infrastructure and public investment today.
And then there's their approach to taxation. They use this brilliant analogy of a bee collecting nectar from a flower without harming it.
Interesting.
The idea is that taxes should be levied in a way that doesn't burden the people or stifle economic activity.
That's a great analogy.
It is.
It suggests a very balanced and thoughtful approach to taxation. What else?
They also understood the importance of regulating markets. The Arthashastra talks about preventing monopolies, protecting consumers from fraud, and setting price controls on essential goods.
Interesting.
They recognize that unbridled greed could lead to instability and harm the overall well-being of society.
It's fascinating to see how they were already grappling with the complexities of economic regulation.
It is.
And finding that balance between individual freedom and collective responsibility.
It challenges our assumptions about the history of economic thought, doesn't it?
It does.
We tend to think of these ideas as being relatively modern.
Right.
But they were already being debated and implemented in ancient India.
It definitely makes you wonder what other insights we might uncover from these ancient texts.
Absolutely. And that's why we're doing this show.
Yeah.
To bring these ideas to a wider audience and to explore their relevance for our own time.
I'm really intrigued by this concept of the four Purusharthas.
Oh, yes.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha.
Right.
Which are considered the four aims of human life.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on those a bit and explain how they relate to economics?
Of course. So Dharma represents righteousness, ethical conduct, and living in accordance with one's duty. Artha, which we're focusing on in this show, represents material wealth and prosperity. Kama is about pleasure, desire, and the enjoyment of life. And moksha is liberation, enlightenment, and the ultimate spiritual goal.
So how do these four aims fit together? Were ancient Indians solely focused on material wealth?
Not at all. In fact, what's so remarkable about the Purusharthas is that they emphasize a holistic view of life. Material wealth is just one part of a balanced and fulfilling existence. It wasn't about accumulating wealth for its own sake, but rather about using it wisely and ethically as a means to achieve a higher purpose.
That's a really interesting perspective. It challenges our modern-day obsession with economic growth and material possessions.
Exactly. The ancient texts remind us that true prosperity goes beyond just the material. It encompasses ethical living, social responsibility, and ultimately spiritual growth.
It's like they were already thinking about sustainability and well-being in a way that's very relevant to us today.
They understood that a truly prosperous society is one that values not just economic growth, but also social harmony, environmental balance, and the ethical conduct of its citizens.
So we've covered some of the key texts and concepts, but I want to get even deeper into the practical applications of these ideas.
I'm ready when you are.
Awesome.
Let's unpack some more of this ancient wisdom. It's fascinating how these ancient texts approach the concept of wealth. They saw it not just as an end in itself, but as a tool, a resource that could be used to achieve those higher goals, those Purusharthas we discussed.
That's a really nuanced perspective. It wasn't about simply accumulating wealth, but about using it responsibly and ethically.
Exactly. The Arthashastra, for instance, delves into the nitty-gritty of how a ruler should manage the state's finances.
Interesting.
It talks about the need for efficient tax collection, prudent spending, and even strategic investments in infrastructure and agriculture.
So they were already thinking about things like fiscal policy and economic development.
Absolutely. They understood that a government's economic policies could have a profound impact on the well-being of its citizens.
Interesting.
They advocated for policies that would promote stability, growth, and fairness.
One thing I'm particularly curious about is their views on trade. India has such a long and rich history of trade and commerce.
That's right.
What insights can we gain from these ancient texts?
Well, they recognized that trade was essential for economic prosperity. The Arthashastra even talks about the importance of establishing trade routes, ensuring the safety of merchants, and maintaining fair and transparent business practices.
It sounds like they were already thinking about some of the key elements of a thriving market economy.
They understood the value of competition, but they also recognized the need for regulation to prevent monopolies and protect consumers from exploitation. It's that balance again, that recognition that a well-functioning economy requires both individual initiative and a supportive framework of rules and institutions.
And what about the role of labor in all of this? Did they have any insights into how to create a fair and just labor system?
They did. Ancient India had a sophisticated system of guilds that played a crucial role in regulating different professions.
Interesting.
These guilds set standards for quality, ensured fair wages, and provided training and support for their members.
So they were kind of like early versions of labor unions? Or professional organizations?
In a way, yes. They were self-governing bodies that advocated for the interests of their members and helped to maintain a stable and ethical labor market.
Interesting.
They also fostered a sense of community and shared responsibility among workers.
It's amazing to see how these ancient systems foreshadow some of the structures we have in place today.
It is.
It suggests that the quest for fair and equitable labor practices is a timeless human endeavor.
Indeed. And speaking of timeless human endeavors, let's talk about social welfare. We've touched on the concept of dharma, which emphasizes ethical conduct and social responsibility. How did those values manifest in their economic policies?
That's a great question. Did they have any systems in place to care for the poor, the sick, or the elderly?
They did. The ancient texts emphasize the importance of providing for the less fortunate. They talk about the need for public granaries to store surplus grain that could be distributed during times of famine.
Interesting.
They also describe systems for providing medical care and shelter for those in need.
So they had a concept of social safety nets like we have today.
Yes, they did.
Okay.
They recognized that a truly prosperous society is one that cares for all its members,
right,
not just the wealthy and powerful.
Yeah.
It's about ensuring that everyone has access to the basic necessities of life,
Yeah.
and that no one is left behind.
These ideas are so relevant to the conversations we're having today about inequality, poverty, and access to health care.
Absolutely. They remind us that the pursuit of economic prosperity should never come at the expense of compassion and social justice.
It's truly remarkable how much we can learn from these ancient thinkers.
It is.
They were grappling with many of the same challenges that we face today, and they offer some truly insightful and timeless solutions.
And we've only just scratched the surface.
Wow.
There's so much more to explore in the vast world of ancient Indian economic thought.
I can't wait to delve even deeper. Are you ready for the next layer of this fascinating journey?
Absolutely. Let's keep uncovering these hidden gems of wisdom.
Welcome back to the Economic Sutra.
Yeah.
We've been on quite a journey exploring the economic wisdom of ancient India.
We have.
And I'm eager to see where we go next.
Me too.
We've covered a lot of ground, from taxation and trade to labor systems and social welfare.
It's been great.
But there's one more area I'd like to explore. It's something that's incredibly relevant to us today, the relationship between economics and the environment.
Yeah, that's a great point. We often think of these as separate domains,
Right.
but they're deeply interconnected, aren't they?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is that ancient Indian thinkers were already aware of this connection thousands of years ago.
That's right.
They had a profound respect for nature and understood that a healthy economy depends on a healthy environment.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to hear more about this. What were some of their specific insights?
Well, for one, they recognized the importance of sustainable practices.
Okay.
They understood that natural resources are finite,
Right.
and that overexploitation could have devastating consequences. They emphasized the need for balance and harmony between human activities and the natural world.
Can you give us some examples of how they put these principles into practice?
Certainly, they had strict rules about deforestation, recognizing the vital role forests play in maintaining ecological balance. Cutting down trees was only allowed for essential purposes.
Interesting.
And they had programs in place for reforestation.
Wow.
They also developed sophisticated systems for water management, recognizing the preciousness of this resource, especially in a region prone to droughts.
It sounds like they were ahead of their time in terms of understanding the importance of conservation and resource management.
They were, and these practices weren't just about preserving nature for its own sake. They were also about ensuring the long-term economic well-being of society.
Okay.
They understood that a degraded environment would ultimately lead to economic hardship.
It's a lesson we're still learning today.
Yeah.
As we grapple with the consequences of climate change and resource depletion.
Precisely, the ancient texts remind us that true prosperity can't be achieved at the expense of the environment.
Right.
It's about finding ways to meet our needs while preserving the health and vitality of the planet for future generations.
This has been an incredibly enlightening conversation.
It has.
We've explored the philosophical foundations of ancient Indian economic thought.
I have.
Delved into their practical approaches to taxation, trade, and social welfare, and discovered their surprisingly modern views on sustainability.
It's been quite a journey.
It has.
And I think it highlights the fact that many of the economic challenges we face today aren't new.
Right.
They've been contemplated by thinkers for centuries.
Yeah.
And there's much we can learn from the wisdom of the past.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
It's been eye-opening to see how these ancient ideas resonate with our modern concerns.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this episode,
okay,
what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember from our exploration of the Economic Sutra?
I think the most important lesson is that ancient Indian economic thought wasn't just about material wealth. It was about a holistic approach to prosperity, one that encompasses ethical conduct, social responsibility, and a harmonious relationship with nature.
Right.
These are values that are more relevant than ever in our increasingly interconnected and complex world.
That's a powerful message, and I want to thank you for sharing your expertise and insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, what stood out to you from our exploration of ancient Indian economic thought? What sparked your curiosity or challenged your assumptions? We encourage you to continue exploring these ideas and see how they might inform your own understanding of economics and the world around you. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep discovering the timeless wisdom that's all around us.